Welcome to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame Spotlight. I'm Kiera Haney. We're here today with Ron St. Angelo. He is a legendary photographer. He spent over 30 years with the Dallas Cowboys. So, Ron, welcome today. Let's talk about you a little bit.
All right.
You've got a brand new display in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So we wanted to learn a little bit about you and let's start. Let's go. So tell me how you got into photography in the first place.
All right. I'm a native Texan. Grew up in East Texas, down around Beaumont. And in fact, Coach Jimmy Johnson was right in Port Arthur, which is we used to play in high school, their team, and they play us.
Great.
They'd always beat us. But in high school, they decided to build in my junior year a photography department that were looking for people interested in photography. And so we literally they gave us the space in the classroom and built the department. I helped construct that. And then when we started that semester, they issued us cameras. We were able to take photographs and then process our film and make prints and things like that. It was like one of those magical things that when you do it, you go, oh.
Well, obviously, because you
Yes.
remember, and you
Yes.
remember those times.
Absolutely.
And you remember that first time probably that you developed
It's
a
visceral.
picture that mattered to you.
Yes,
So tell me, right out of high school, then you went into the military.
I did.
Okay, and that
Enlisted
was
in the Navy.
the Navy, okay.
And I got orders to Vietnam on board a Navy destroyer out of California. I'd gone to boot camp out in California, prior to that, and then we did training on a destroyer in the United States to kind of get ready for sea duty. But nothing prepares you for going over into the middle of the Pacific Ocean and crossing it, and then ending up, in battle.
And you were in Vietnam?
I was.
Okay. And you
68, 69, 70.
okay, so two different times you were over there. And tell me about, did any of that feed your passion for photography?
It did. I was doing some photography because I had a camera and bought another camera while I was at sea, and we were, we'd get R&R and buy cameras, and then we would photograph from the ship stuff that was going on the ship, and you could send them into Stars and Stripes, which was the Armed Forces newspaper.
Oh, okay.
So you could get your pictures published in Stars and Stripes. So I did some of that, and I wasn't the only one that loved photography on board ship, and some of them who had been collecting equipment for some time had some really extensive equipment collections. But as I've learned, it doesn't matter how much gear you have. It's really your eye and your ability to capture significant moments as a photographer that is where the rubber meets the road, as it were.
I got you. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit, and then you're back, and you go to college. And then, so how did college end up from there to the Dallas Cowboys? Give us a little bit of that background.
Okay, so I went to college for like 4 years at University of Houston, like starting around 70, 71. Went to school with Robert Newhouse, who he was playing at University of Houston. I was like just a student there and followed him on the field. He ended up being drafted by the Dallas Cowboys and starring for them. I ended up going back to California, and I lived in San Francisco and in Carmel. I actually lived in Berkeley for a while, and all the time was continuing to photograph. And then came back to Texas and started my own business. Met my wife in the late 70s, and she basically, angel as she is, went to work in a regular full-time job so that we could make it while I got started as a professional photographer.
And that's so important.
It is.
And
It
y'all are
wouldn't have
still
happened.
together.
Yes, 43 years.
43 years later. So
Yes.
that's pretty cool.
Yes. And so we're doing, professional work in Houston at that time, and I had just a job come up from a client of mine that did sports-related things for a project with the Cowboys. And I always wanted to end up back with the Cowboys because I grew up following them when I was a kid. And so we started shooting up there, met some of their key people, and they encouraged us to move to Dallas.
Oh, wow.
And we were living in Houston at the time and commuting, which was a long drive every
Yes.
weekend. And then kept doing more and more things. The more work you do, the better you deliver the work you give them, the more your opportunity increases. And in those days, and probably to this day, being in the Cowboys organization is like being a part of their family. And most of the people that work there usually work there a long time and very loyal. I mean, they're people
So
that
they're
are
loyal to their people, and the people are loyal to them.
exactly.
That's very
And that
cool.
goes through both of the regimes that I was a part of
And
with
so
Tom
let's talk
Landry.
about that. So you joined them in
The-
late 70s?
Yes, in
Okay,
the,
so
the
right-
Landry era.
Landry,
Tom
exactly.
Landry, and-
So talk about Tom and what he was like.
He was a great man. And I was in awe of him. He was also in World War II. He was a Air Force, either Army Air Force, I think he was Army Air Force pilot, and like flew missions in World War II. And so we had a kind of a connection because of our military service. But it was more his kind of Christian fellowship that drew me to him. He was such an honorable man, and I just admired him, and being able to work for him and kind of be around him, and then eventually get to know him, have one of the photographs that I did of him be used for the statue that they made
Oh,
of
that's
him
what they used. Oh, that's very
from my
cool.
photograph. And
That's cool.
the Texas Sports Hall of Fame
Yeah.
probably has that photograph.
Yes. It's beautiful.
And that statue is now outside of AT&T Stadium in Dallas. And I'm hoping to add to that statue with a photograph I did on the 90s Cowboys with the triplets. I think I may have
Yep.
mentioned. That's like one of the most famous photographs.
That's a
in
very famous one.
Dallas
So
history.
let's explain what that one is.
That's the three players, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, that were the kind of the heart and soul of the players on those championship Cowboys teams. And that opportunity, obviously there's a lot, and the Cowboys came to me and said, there's a lot of photographs of them together, but we think yours is the best. And we want to use it. You know, they ended up doing a signature collection for me at AT&T Stadium. My pictures are all over AT&T Stadium. They were at the old Texas Stadium and at the Cowboys headquarters at Frisco now. Used to be in Valley Ranch, but now they're up in Frisco.
And you have, speaking of the old stadium, obviously where you started, a beautiful photograph that's the stadium with the light coming through the hole in the roof. And then you have a picture of the implosion that was done from the same vantage point, which is pretty
Exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
So I think about over 30 years with the Cowboys. Can you, I mean, there's got to be so much that happened during those years. Talk about some of the things that stick out to you, not necessarily from the activity as it was, but maybe I got this great photograph that happened during this time.
There were a lot of like important games in the early '80s. The Cowboys were still really good with Danny White quarterbacking the team. Or Drew was still on the team, but they never got past the championship game. And then about 10 years later, after Jerry had purchased the team, there's a very famous play in San Francisco history that happened in 1983 when Joe Montana, the quarterback for the 49ers, completed the catch to Dwight Clark out in San Francisco, which kept Dallas from that Super Bowl that year.
Oh, yeah.
That was like a huge moment. So I guess it would have been almost 10 years later. We were out in San Francisco. The Cowboys were on the rise. They were a very young team that Jimmy had built. And we actually had a big pep rally at Texas Stadium before going out there for the NFC Championship game. And we went out there. That to me is the kind of the signature game as far as the photography that I was able to get. I started being able to get great photographs. And my photography is not your typical sports action photography. Even though I do that type of photography, I'm more of a storyteller. I'm looking to tell stories with my photographs. And if you look through some of the images I was showing you, I've got a picture out in San Francisco. It had been raining when we got out there for several days, these torrential rains, monsoon rains that happened when I lived out there in January. That's kind of what happens.
Yeah.
And so the field was so soggy, they had to literally come in and take the middle of the field out and put in fresh turf so the players could even play.
Wow.
So they didn't really do the sides, they just did the middle of the field. And I have photographs of that. I have a photograph of Daryl Johnson's a very famous photograph called Moose in the Mud, where he's walking through this mud puddle to get out to the field. And it was so funny because the 49ers had, on their side of the field, they laid down a kind of a carpet or a blanket to cover the mud. And on the Cowboys side, we were all standing in the mud.
Yeah.
And they didn't give us
They didn't care.
No, they wanted us to be in the slot. And so that particular game was a turning point in Dallas Cowboy history. And it was a great game. That's kind of the game when Emmitt Smith came to be the star that he was, I would say. And that was the game that led to the first Super Bowl of that era. I ended up with a lot of great photography out of that game. And then 2 weeks later, we were at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And it's kind of interesting because the night before the game, we were at the Sports Illustrated party. We were in L.A., in Hollywood, basically, on the Hollywood soundstage.
Yeah.
We were on a Hollywood soundstage where all these parties that the NFL put on. And it was pouring down rain, and I went, oh, man, it's going to be like San Francisco, a couple of weeks ago. The next morning, it was a perfect day. Perfect temperature, clear skies. We go out to the Rose Bowl where that game was played. It's an incredible setting for football.
It is.
And there's been some very, very famous college games played there. So getting to photograph the Cowboys in that first Super Bowl after having been beat by the 49ers 10 years before, we were there where they should have been.
Full circle.
It was full circle.
Yeah.
It literally was.
That's very cool.
And that game, ended up, I think the first one's always the best, the first Super Bowl win, and ended up being a blowout. And that team, you could see, was just on the rise. And they were very young. And well, they ended up doing 3 out of 4, which is a very rare. And going back to back.
That's when you go, this is going to be fun.
It is.
Here we go.
But the players, and here's where Jimmy Johnson kind of comes in, because he wouldn't let them be satisfied with just doing that. And I remember Michael Irvin telling, I forget who it was, that when you go to the Super Bowl and you win it, it's like eating pie, and as much pie as you can eat. But after a while, you get tired of pie because it's just too much. It's too rich. But Jimmy, Coach Johnson, he kept on them and drove them. And there were certain players, character players like Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, and Emmett, who were like driven. They were the core of that team. And they kind of set the example along with the coach. They
set the tone and brought everybody with them.
Come back and do it again. And that second year, there was a contract dispute with Emmitt Smith that he held out the first 2 games that the Cowboys lost that year. And Charles Haley, who was a defensive star, threw his helmet through a wall after the second loss. And we need Emmitt. And so Jerry wrote Emmitt a big check. Emmitt comes back. They end up winning most of the rest of the games that year, go on to the next Super Bowl, Super Bowl 28 in Atlanta. and won that one. That was the back-to-back. And then that's when they had the breakup. After that, Jimmy and Jerry just did not get along. And they'll both tell you that they should have figured out a way to make that work. But you're dealing with giant egos and that want credit. And sometimes when you're that close to people, it's hard to get along. And
big
your
personalities.
personality clashes. But Jerry would tell you, and he said a couple of weeks ago at the Super Bowl that he should have made that, as the owner, he should have made that work. But Jimmy then said when he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame that, it wasn't all Jerry's fault, that, they kind of needed to meet in the middle together. It was kind of both their faults.
Yeah.
But that's kind of led to the turn. They still were great, but they only had one more title left in them, even though they went to the title game in San Francisco in '94 and played a heck of a game. In fact, it was probably the most courageous game that a lot of them said, even though they lost that game in the end, because they played sloppy at first, but then they came back and almost won, that they were more proud after that game than even some of the games they won, because they didn't give up.
So you talked about the Football Hall of Fame. So the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they've got your pictures in their archives now, right? Correct.
Yes.
Because you think about it, you've got archived 30 years of
Historic
football.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool. So let's talk about your photographs and what you really like to do. Do you feel like your best photographs came out of those sideline action shots, or maybe the guys on the sideline or off the field, or where do you think your best photographs came from?
It's a little bit of all of those things, because you're really bringing the same sort of acumen to all of those different situations, even though they're completely different.
Yeah.
Let's say in a portrait way versus a game action way versus off the field, maybe you're photographing
more of a slice of life, or trying to
behind the scenes,
an emotional
in the locker room. In the locker room, for instance, because I had access to, and the big part of this, because I was working contract for the Cowboys, I had access to the locker room.
Full access.
And absolutely, with a camera. So I saw things that were going on before the game, after the game, during the game, obviously.
That other people are not privy to.
No. And that gives you sort of a view that you feel like from an inside of the team type of a thing, which then I would say informed some of the photography, because you see what this means to the players, and it comes out in their just what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the neat thing about it is that you've been in there so much that they kind of forget you're there, because you're there all the time.
Yeah.
So that, like right now, they're on Hard Knocks. And they said the first few days, you're very aware that the cameras are everywhere. But after a few days, you forget them, because they're always there. And that was kind of the way it was with me. And so I was able to sit back, kind of blend into the background and watch. And then when I would see something, that I thought was compelling, be able to capture that. And so that's kind of the behind the scenes part of it. But a lot of it is being a competitive person I'm a photographer that competes with other photographers for work. Okay, believe me, there are a lot of photographers that would love to be able to do what I did.
Absolutely.
And I got calls all the time. Can I carry your bag? Can I come to the game with you and help you? And I had friends that would assist me just carrying equipment and things like that. But I was the one, that was doing the photography, and there was a lot of people that wanted my access. And so having that for that length of time in that particular period of history, sports history, because one of the executives once told me, said, "Ron, you do great photography. Your images are fantastic." He said, "But if these players didn't accomplish and weren't champions, they wouldn't have near the value as a historic value as if you were photographing, let's say, the team now that hasn't done anything in 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the last time they were successful was when I was shooting that era, and they've kind of just been struggling to get back ever since. Now, the league has changed quite a bit. So the playing field is really level. Most of the teams don't have like superior athletes in numbers. They're all kind of made up of the same personnel. They have access to the same personnel. If you've got the checkbook to write it and you get, let's say, a top quality quarterback, like a Patrick Mahomes or someone like that, you're gonna have an opportunity to be near the top just because you have such a great player at such an important position.
Right.
And that's what the Cowboys had, except they had players all over the field, from the offensive line, the people in the trenches, defensive line, backfield. It's hard to get all those at once anymore.
Yeah.
It
In
really
depth
is.
of, yes.
That's why you see
exactly.
new champions all the time nowadays.
So, Ron, we've been talking today about so much cool stuff, a great career that you had over 30 years with the Cowboys. You've got a gallery now set up at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, just right down the road from us. Tell us a little bit about that, and what does that mean to you?
Being included, having your work included with that group of athletes, knowing the history, because I grew up with it, of some of the great athletes that are inducted in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. Some people are friends of mine. Some are people that I admired, going all the way back to Babe Zaharias, who I grew up with. Or I didn't grow up with her, but she was from Beaumont, around my hometown. It just means a lot to be in the company of that type of, and being from Texas, being included with that group and having an exhibit of your work that showcases the history you were able to capture. Feels like that you're part of history too. And
Well, you
it's a
absolutely
way
are.
of being remembered.
And you've had many accolades through the years.
I have.
It's very cool, a very cool career that you've had, and you continue to have. New book that was just published, The Dynasty Dallas Cowboy Team of the 1990s, which was obviously
30th anniversary.
big time. Beautiful photographs in here
you.
if anybody is wants to pick that up. And of course, you can see your photographs at the hall. So we encourage people to come down and hang out, check out the hall, and obviously Ron's beautiful photographs, meaningful photographs of the Dallas Cowboys. So we appreciate you being here
Thank you.
today and hanging out with us.
Enjoyed it, Kira.
All right.